my topic is Singapore government, and I chose this because of my strong affinity towards history and politics, and because I live at the center of my topic itself, which is Singapore. Um, the significance of this topic was that last year there was a riot in Little India, which led to a 10:30 p.m. alcohol curfew throughout all of Singapore. And then a couple months ago, there were parliamentary elections, in which the current party remained in power. And the end last year, Angus Yee was tried and convicted for defamation against Lee Kuan Yew and Jesus. So those three events, those specific events, I wanted to look at and then kind of throughout my paper coordinate them and see the connection between them and come to a conclusion as to why they're so important and significant. And because of Singapore's geographic location specifically on the Pacific Rim, it has kind of contributed a lot to Singapore's political prowess and economic prosperity because they're involved in trade. And every year, the ASEAN meeting, the supranational organization, is held in Singapore at the Shangri-La. And that's why Singapore has a lot of influence and significance to this topic is significant importance to Singapore and just politics on a global scale. My research question is, to what extent would Singapore benefit if we were to alter its way of governing that would better accommodate its working class? So, statistically speaking, according to the Happy Planet Index of 2015, Singapore scored a 39.8. And in comparison to all of its other indexes, which is, for example, one of them is the World Bank Index that Sam mentioned earlier, it scored #1 for economy rating. And so compared to other indexes like that, Singapore's worst grading is on its Happy Planet Index. So that shows that despite Singapore's economic prosperity, political prowess, they still have a problem with the social well-being of its citizens. And so the method I used was I replicated the same method that was found in this paper. So where do they fit in teachers' perspectives of multicultural education and diversity in Singapore by the National Institute of Education. It was conducted at the Nanyang Technical University in 2010 of January. And so this method, although it looked at through an educational lens of Singapore and its citizens, it worked for mine because the same methods would work because I was looking, not through an educational lens, but a social lens itself. And so what I did was the bulk of my data comes from a focus group, the focus group study, which was comprised of 4 participants. And I also used the other bulk of my data came from meta-analysis itself. So like I mentioned, there are 4 participants varying in age and gender, 2 males, 2 females, all Singapore citizens, and their primary education was in Singapore. And 3 out of the 4 participants had secondary education in the United States. So they had kind of contrasting views of what the social life is like in the United States and in Singapore, and what the education systems and how they differ. And part of the thing that I wanted to see, although it wasn't the main focus of the paper itself, was is there a generational gap between the older participants and the younger ones to see if over time their perception has evolved into different things and how they view the Singapore government and how its rule of law has impacted the society today. So the results came out were kind of a shock to me because I shaped my paper, so to speak, dependent on the fact that my findings would help kind of lean towards one way. I thought that Singaporeans would want more freedom because it's kind of like a basic concept. Freedom throughout history has been very imperative towards a social well-being. But the surprising thing was, if given a chance, every single participant said they would not want more freedom. Because in cases like Angus Yee, people often abuse that freedom and power. So I thought that was kind of interesting because my whole paper was shaped up towards that false pretense, and I had to change it. Well, not change, so to speak. I had to use that different data and use it in the context of my paper itself. So none wanted freedom of speech given a chance, and that was also shown through cases like Angus Yee. And there was no actual generational gap. I mean, because most of the participants said that they didn't want more freedom, and so Singapore, as I mentioned before, Singapore, according to the Freedom of Press Index, scored a 90 out of 150. That was on the Happiness Planet Index, 90 out of 150. So in comparison, that's its lowest rating. And in the Freedom of Press Index, it scores 150 out of 180 sovereign states in the world. That is a kind of a low number because compared to other tag nations like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and South Korea, Singapore's democracy rating is very low. And even though as successful as Singapore is right now, last month, or a couple months ago, sorry, in August, Singapore celebrated its 50th anniversary. And Singapore is obviously successful in regards to economic prosperity, political prowess, as I mentioned before, but its social well-being is rated, or its workforce is rated one of the unhappiest in the world. So there's kind of that dilemma of they're so successful, but they're not that happy as they could be. And that kind of creates this conundrum where what can the government do to actually fix that issue? And so my kind of thesis, so to speak, is that the Singapore government should allocate more funds and research and resources to how to improve the social well-being of its citizens. And so despite economic and political stability as of now, how can we better that? How can Singapore become more successful than it already is? That is what my paper aims to look at. Thank you.
Michael,
Yeah, in my
really quickly, a couple questions. I'm sure everybody has a few questions. Yeah, you can stop it. That's fine.